Here we are in North Tonawanda History Museum, waiting for author Chet Wiech, NT boy, class of '73, wrote this book, Firmly Convinced. Talks a little bit about his career as a prosecutor in New Jersey. He's here to share some stories with friends and family and fellow classmates of '73. So let's hear what Chet has to say about Firmly Convinced.
Tonight, with Chet Wiech appearing, it will be our last scheduled speaker of this year. Next year we're going to concentrate more on the Erie Canal Bicentennial, and we're doing that in conjunction with several other nonprofits in the area. So probably by the end of December we'll have been set on programs for that, so watch social media for announcements of things coming up. Thanks all for coming, and turn this over to Chet.
Yeah, here. Yeah, Chad. All right, here.
Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Howard, for having me. It's a great honor to be here. I'd like to thank you very much. And for those of you who've never been to the museum before, take a tour if you can when this presentation is over tonight. There's some great things there. Come back here, spend some time, like I plan on doing in the future. Howard and his staff do a great job. They exist on donations, so if you want to be generous, that'd be great. But please take the time to come back here if you don't have time tonight to see the great job that Howard and his staff have done. I also want to thank John Barron for hooking this up for me. He was the liaison between Howard and I. Fortunately for John, and unfortunately for us, he had a paid vacation to Hawaii, so that's where he was. Nice going, John.
Crying in the river.
I'd also like to thank my brother Bob and my sister Jeannie, who are here tonight. They put me up when I'm here, or probably put up with me. But I'm always grateful for their hospitality. And thank you to all of you. I mean, I'm overwhelmed by the fact that you're here. This is my first presentation, book signing, if you will. And it was important I started here because this community is very important to me. Most of you know me. And for those of you who don't, you're about to learn this. The Avenues is real special to me. I grew up 6 blocks over on 14th Avenue between Oliver and Gilmore, and probably like most of you, I learned to swim at Memorial Pool. Like some of you, I attended Gilmore School, Payne Junior High, and finally NT High School, where I met all of you good people, or most of you good people are here tonight. It was important that I started here because North Tonawanda will always mean a lot to me. It'll always be a special place in my heart, particularly this section. As I said, learned to swim at Memorial Pool, played a lot of sandlot football at Gilmore School, played a lot of baseball in the outfield at Payne Park, and did a lot of drinking up and down Oliver Street. It's changed a bit since the 70s, but it's always great to be back here and to talk with you. And I really am grateful for this opportunity. I want to thank all of you who've bought copies of Firmly Convinced so far. You're contributing greatly to my grandchildren's legacy. At my house is about all they're going to get. But no, I really appreciate your support, and I hope those of you that have already read the book are enjoying it. It was a pleasure to write it. And I was the last guy I thought they could write a book, believe me. I'm not going to tell you a lot about the book, because for those of you who haven't read it, I hope you buy it. And I don't want to spoil any of it for you.
Did you bring any copies with you?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I absolutely did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, anyway, the way I got started with this book, I've been kicking around the idea for years. I've been retired for 11 years now. And I just thought about writing a book. And I said, who's going to want to read it? I don't know. Should I, shouldn't I? 2 years ago, when I was back here for our 50th high school reunion, Jeff Kroll, who wrote Sing the Wing, did a presentation. Saw my buddy Scooch, who I hadn't seen in years. Thanks, Scooch. You probably did the most to keep me alive all these years, keeping them, 300-pound tackles off me during games. And I listened to Jeff's presentation, and someone asked him during the question and answer period, would you write a sequel to the book? And he said, I don't know, I'm pretty timed out on this subject. He said, but if the right subject came along, I might write another book. So I see him and said, you ever think about ghostwriting a book, Jeff? And he said, well, why? What did you do for a living? And I told him, and he said, do you have any stuff that you've written so far? And I was kicking around the idea, so I had some stuff that was really raw. He said, well, send it to me. So I sent it to him, and he said, this stuff isn't too bad. He said, only you could tell this story. He said, you've experienced it. And so I started writing, and Jeff kind of mentored me through the process. I consult him on this, that, and the other thing. I wish I was more computer literate. I could have saved myself a ton of money in editing. but Jeff was real helpful. And then I reconnected with Jeff Smalden. Jeff was here last, so this is a tough act to follow. And Jeff gave me a lot of good tips. We hadn't talked to each other since high school. 50 years ago, we reconnected. And I said, what a shame, Jeff, I never knew you were a forensic psychologist. I said, I could have got you a free trip to Atlantic City to testify for me. He goes, oh, I didn't know you were in the business either. I said, well, but Jeff was a real big help in helping me shape things, figure things out. The other person that was significant, and okay, I'm going to ruin this part for you, in the acknowledgement, Lynn Rinkowski's wife, Sue. She's an avid reader. I would send her stuff. She'd go, I don't know about that. Or maybe, have you consulted a lawyer? So, a good one? But she was really instrumental in my family. Was very supportive. My friends who knew this was going on, I tried to keep it a secret because it sucked. I really didn't want you buying it. But as things progressed, it came together. It took me about 10 months. I'm an early riser still. I think it's attributed to the Navy. I'm usually up at 4 in the morning, and my wife sleeps till 9. So it's great. I get 5 hours of quiet, at a minimum to work. So I work probably on average like 6 hours a day, 7 days a week sometimes to get it done. But it really started to flow, and it gets better at the end of the book. I apologize for the stuff early on. It wasn't as good as it could have been, believe me. But I continued to write, continued to talk to both Jeffs, who helped me out tremendously. And it got to the point where I did so many rewrites and so many outtakes, I just got sick and tired of it. And Jeff Krull said to me, when you're ready, I'll hook you up with the managing partner at Mission Point Press. So I finally called Jeff one day and I said, Jeff, I've had it. I said, I can't rewrite another story. I'm sick of reading it. I'm going to send the manuscript. If the guy trashes it, I don't care. So I sent it off and figuring it'd be, nice try. Something like that, or it doesn't appeal to most audiences. A day later, he emailed me a proposal. And I talked to him, found out a little bit about him. Doug Weaver is his name, the managing partner there. And he was a newspaper reporter for the Kansas City Star. And he worked the court beat. And Kansas City also has casino gambling. So there was a connection right away. And he said, it needs some editing. And, we talked. He didn't give me a hard sell, which I really liked, and I thought it was really straightforward. And he gave me a breakdown of everything it was going to cost. And after my son said, well, some people buy a boat in retirement. You wrote a book. I said, okay, let's go with it, And surprisingly, he was all over it. And, he told me that he had formed Mission Point Publishing after the newspaper business started to tank. So he formed this company and he took a lot of his reporters with him. I think he says now he has 50 employees. And they're a pretty reputable publishing company. I checked them out. And I went the self-publishing route. And what's different with the self-publishing route is you don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to a literary agent to try and sell your book to a publisher. So he said, look, I've got the right editor for you. Hart Couchy, who I also recognized in the acknowledgments, and a lady, Zinzi Robles, who was my team leader. Excuse me. the editor does what an editor does. Corrects all the punctuation I didn't understand in high school and still do. The team leader does everything from layout, which is the design, the cover design, the in-page design. They get to something called an IBN number, which now my book will appear in the Library of Congress. Don't be too impressed. Once you get the IBM number, everybody's book gets in there. but no retailer will touch it without the IBM number. I don't completely understand what it is, but you need one. Additionally, as I said, she did the cover design. I gave her a general idea of what I wanted, and this was the third cover. Finally, I said, "You got it. This is exactly what I want." I thought the other ones made it look like a murder mystery, which it's not. And the other one, I don't know where they were coming from with that thing. It was too goth for me. Let me just put it that way. But one of the things I told Doug, who was the managing partner, I said I'd like to have a Zoom meeting with the team leader and the editor. It's important that, this is a literary term I learned, that person captures your voice. And I'm flattered that a lot of you told me it sounded like you were talking. I hope so. I wrote the doggone thing. But I had a Zoom meeting with the two of them, and I was really impressed right away. They were really down-to-earth people. She lives in Austin, Texas. He lives in Mexico. So everything was done email, very few phone calls. I don't know, we went through 2 or 3 edits because you have the final say of anything that goes in there. If you don't like it, it doesn't hit print. Additionally, what the team leader does is hooks you up with the printer. And it's important to pick the right printer. There's basically one major one, Ingram Spark. And what Ingram Spark does for you, in addition to printing your book, is they send what is called a sales sheet, which is a brief description of your book, to all retailers. Well, not all, 38,000 throughout the world. So they're a nice group to have. Let me see, what was the other aspect of it? And they hook you up with account on Amazon, KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, another place you can buy the book. And you can buy it directly from Ingram Spark too. But I didn't realize how many different distributors got involved in this. I've talked to friends whose copy came from California, from Miami, all over. I even sold 4 books in England. Since the Queen's dead, I don't know anybody in England. So, I don't know. Well, I hope they enjoy. I'll never meet them anyway. So. But they give you a tally sheet of how many copies are sold, just so you can stay on it, and what your break-even point is, what cluster of books you have to sign, this, that, and the other thing. Then they hook you up with a marketing person who tries to sell you, this, that, the other thing, to get your book out there. When I talked to that guy, I said, you're pretty much doing everything that you should be doing to sell the book. Going to your local bookstore, because they like local authors. I didn't go to the library yet. I don't want everybody to look at the book for free. I'll wait till I sell a few more copies. Then they can start circulating that around. And I'll hit all the libraries in the county then. But you hook up with groups. Because of the nature of my business, I got to know a lot of police officers during the course of my career. And my next gig after this is in November. I'm speaking to a group of retired officers in Atlantic County, New Jersey, where I live. They're a good group because there are like 300 of them. So they'll be good to speak with. And the detective who I know, who's the president of this organization, kind of previewed my book at their last monthly meeting, and it was great. I had heard from a detective who worked on the Atlantic City Police Department in narcotics, and I had no idea what he did after retirement. I've been retired 11 years myself, and he's an adjunct professor at Stockton University, which is our local university in Galloway Township, New Jersey, part of the New Jersey State University system. And lucky me, he chairs a committee that selects guest speakers for the university. So I heard from him, and he said, would you be willing to come in next semester and, talk to our criminal justice classes. And I wanted to say, is the Pope Catholic? Yeah, I'll be there. You tell me when. I'll pick you up and drive you. And that'll be a big help. Because, boy, if, a CJ, criminal justice class, picks up that as part of their curriculum, cha-ching, cha-ching, Not that I'm out to make money, and it sounds like that. I really wasn't. Our grandchildren are very young. I have 3 grandchildren, 6 and twins that are 3. And I said, I'm in the 4th quarter here. By the time they're old enough to read some of the language in that book, I might not be around. And maybe someday they'll want to pick up their book and see what their judge, Polish for grandpa, anybody here who's not, probably 3 of you, right? They'll get an opportunity to see what their grandfather did. I hope. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what other aspects of it there are. Sorry, my memory isn't what it used to be. Yes, sir.
How did you know how many books to print in the beginning?
This is a print on demand, so it isn't like they send you 100 copies and they sit in your garage and your wife says, when are you going to get rid of those things? Every time you order a copy, they print that single copy. So they don't. So if there's a delay, that's why it is. They're probably backed up. And it's funny, where you live really depends on. I got a book delivered in 2 days. My neighbor next door waited 3 weeks for it. So I don't know how it works. What order they place these orders in when they get them, but it's the way they do it. So, and I mean, it's beneficial to you, and it's beneficial when they sell your book to bookstores, retailers, because they can send it back without any penalty. You don't get reimbursed if you buy. If I buy 15 copies, which I have to sell tonight, and I don't sell them, I'm not getting my money back. So, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding once again. But the bookstores can send them back. So you're not limited. They tell you how many copies you have to sell to recoup your investment, and depending upon who sells them determines your royalty. Which I gotta have a little discussion with Amazon because we have a little disagreement about our share. What I think Amazon is doing, I don't mean to badmouth them because they're selling my book, but I think they're buying from the printer, and because my tally is coming up on the printer's account, and Amazon's telling me I sold 28 copies through Amazon. I don't know. I've talked to about 30, 40, 50, 100 people who've already bought it on Amazon, and something's not right. Geez, I mean, I should just probably trust Amazon, right?
Bezos needs the money.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Absolutely.
Are you marketing it all to like colleges?
I haven't started yet. That'll be my big, like I say, this is my maiden voyage. I wanted to start here. My problem is, Billy, I'm ambitious, but I'm lazy. I will get that. I will get that started soon, though. It really is.
What?
Hey, come on, you guys know me. That's a pretty good description. All right.
Hey, Chet, why'd you decide to write the book?
I decided to write the book. I think prosecutors have been taking a lot of heat the last couple of years. And I think people are kind of getting a warped sense of what the justice system is all about, and they're starting to believe that it's systemic. And I wrote it because I don't think the problem is systemic. It's human beings that operate within the system, and when everyone does their job, it works well. And when people don't do their job, from the cop on the street to the prosecutor who gets the case, to the public defender who, yeah, let's just get rid of this case. That isn't the way the system is designed to work. And there's a chapter on judges there that might not be flattering to a few judges, but well, they resemble that remark. But that was it, Dan. To try and give people a clearer picture. I was talking with Mike Fonzek this morning. He says hi to everybody here. He's kind of between trips, so he couldn't make it tonight, but it was nice of him to call me. And Mike said what surprised him, oh boy, this is going to be a spoiler alert. He said, I learned a lot from the book. You know, I learned a lot about procedure and stuff, and I said, well, it's good. You know, I'm glad because, you know, civics is something that's not taught anymore. And you take for granted, you know, that everybody just knows how the system works, and that's not the case, you know. And I didn't want the book to be a personal memoir, so if it is, I apologize for that. I want you to get to know the people who operate within the system, you know, how important all their roles are, and particularly that they're human. I mean, you know, we go through the trials and tribulations that we all go through. There's a chapter in there about when we formed a union. Oh my gosh. Can I say this on camera, Dan? What a shit show that was. Oh my gosh. I mean, there were people lunging across the table at one another, and these are people who carry guns, some of them. You know, so it didn't make for a real good situation. But that basically, Dan, too, is there's an educational aspect of it. I hope it isn't overly educational. I hope it's more human interest, or I hope it's a combination of both for those who read it and enjoy it. Any other questions?
Chet?
Yes.
In your career, how would you classify, or what classification would the majority of the cases that you prosecuted, what classification would that fall in?
Near the end of my career, Howard, all I tried was murder cases. And I like that. You know, the drug cases, they're pretty, you know, you try one drug case, you try them all, and, you know, unless it's the Medellin cartel or something. But, you know, we had drug problems in Atlantic City, but nothing to that great extent. Robberies, a lot of robberies. Atlantic City has a population, I think 32,000, but there are 27 million visitors a year, so you can imagine that not all 27 million come there with a pure heart. I don't know if I should say this. If there's a sequel to all the stuff I couldn't write about, but you know, like, yeah, I don't know. Like Apollo said to Rocky, ain't gonna be no rematch, baby.
You know, as a prosecutor, you see the pain in a lot of these victims.
Yes.
You know, that have gone through horrible, and the person that is accused of doing it on trial. I mean, how do you help from feeling their pain or their grief? You get kind of drawn into that at times, or?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost impossible not to, Dan. Some of these cases take 2 years to go to trial, and you're meeting constantly with the family. And, you know, I always had and this is no lie, I would tell people this the first time I met them, usually it was very raw. It was days after they were burying their son, their father, you know, nephew, whoever it was, and I'd say, you know, look, I never want to be in the situation you're in right now, sitting across from a table and having to trust someone you never met before to, you know, do justice for you. And I said, you know, if at any point in the litigation, you don't like me, I mean, there's 30 prosecutors in the office. You know, all you gotta do is call a prosecutor, get somebody else. But I tell you, you're making a big mistake, because I'm going after that guy like white on rice. So, yeah, Dan, at times it was hard. I mean, anybody who's read the book, what was the chapter? Making Friends for Life? Yeah.
They say conviction brings closure, but a lot of times it really not, you know,
Can you say
never
this on
never
camera?
ends for the victims.
Closure's bullshit.
It is. I mean, it's the best you can do, but, you know, sometimes, man, you'd be in trial and, I mean, you're on a treadmill for weeks on end, you're not sleeping. And as I described it, I think you get this vacant feeling because you put so much effort in. Yeah, you feel good, we won, the schmuck's going away for probably the rest of his life. But you develop such a relationship with the family sometimes that it just isn't enough for it, you know?
Chet, I don't know if I'm going to word this right, but over the course of your career, did the crimes seem to get more violent and more, you know, more crimes, more severe?
It absolutely did, Sue. Wow. when I started in the office in 1987, anytime there was a shooting case, like everyone was fighting over it to try it. And there's a high school basketball tournament that's hosted every year by this Catholic high school down there, Holy Spirit. And they get teams from all over the country. And, oh man, it's probably 88, 89. There were gangs that came and started having a shootout. And that just like burst the dam. I mean, and everybody's, no, not another shooting. You know, those people are like, yeah, I'd love to try that case, it's juicy. It depended, you know, things ebbed and flowed. One year, I think we had 40 homicides in the county, and 75 were domestic violence related, which is a scary number. Yes, Pete?
So when you put together a case, did you have a team? And who were there an investigator, were there other prosecutors, or what was it?
3 people essentially, Pete, me, myself, and I, and my detective.
Yeah.
And in the book I describe how important detectives were. You know, you work as a team, and I say you become like brothers, you know. You get in some crazy situations from time to time, and it's always good to have a guy with a gun along with you. I can tell you that much, you know. Yes?
Who makes the perfect juror?
The perfect juror. That, another spoiler alert in the book, I talk about jury selection and jurors specifically. There was one town I loved to pick jurors from because they would convict their mother. You just saw it like, why bother with evidence? Let's just get in their room and vote and go to lunch, you know? The perfect juror, you know, somebody who's fair. And it's hard because in New York, I've never practiced in New York, but as I understand the practice, as a DA you get to participate in jury selection and asking questions. In New Jersey there's a list of questions the judge asks, so you know very little about that person. It helped to live there because you kind of knew what a community's values were. Wow. Yeah, sometimes jurors would fool you. I mean, you know, you thought, oh boy, this group's with me. Wrongo. Wrongo.
Male, female?
Depending upon the case. I'm going to ask all of you. All right, let's take a vote. In a sexual assault case, would you put a man, or would you prefer to put a man or a woman on that jury?
Man.
Man, how many for men? How many for women? The men win, and particularly men with daughters.
Yeah.
I remember one time I ran into a juror after a sexual assault case, and he worked at my local supermarket in the deli area, and he goes, "Did you pick me because I played golf?" I said, "No, I picked you because you had 3 daughters." And women, women I always found were very scrutinizing of a woman's testimony. I can remember a sexual assault case I tried that was an acquittal, which, you know, the verdict has to be unanimous, so 12 people agreed. And 4 women were in tears when they delivered that verdict, but still voted not guilty.
Chet, you've been out of the game 11 years. There's certain cases that, without going into any detail, that still stick in your craw a little bit. Are you able to move on from those now in retirement? Or?
Yeah, I have, Timmy. There's some that, you still get a few nightmares about. I gotta admit to you.
Yeah.
One in particular, this woman who killed her 18-month-old child. Yeah.
You told me there was quite a few you couldn't write about. They were a little off color. You said, you know, you couldn't put them in your book.
Yeah. I tried to tell as much as I could about the cases I did, but there are stories behind the stories, and maybe you pump enough beer in me one of these rooms. I didn't want to hurt anybody with this book, so that wasn't my intent. You know, and a judge friend of mine, he hired me in the office, and he became the presiding criminal judge, and he said, "Boy, you did a great job, you know, hiding people in there." I go, "Oh, the people I wrote about understand what I'm talking about." Because we shared the experience, you know. for lack of a better description. I mean, you know, what do they say? People like sausage in the lawsuit, see the room to be made, you know, so
Yeah.
the criminal justice system's, you know, no different in that regard. Good questions, I mean, yeah, that one particularly, I mean, she was convicted and everything, but that was, the funny, I can't tell you this story about it because it's true and it's not so bad. They put on this psychologist who testified that she falsely confessed to killing her child because of this battered spouse syndrome, or her live-in partner was an abuser. And all things pointed to her. I mean, she went into such explicit detail about what she did to this poor kid. But she was on the stand for a whole day. I was cross-examining her. And the next day, the victim was testifying, and the judge was a friend of mine. He says, well, you better tone it down tomorrow. You know, you can't come after the victim like that, or the defendant like that. You know, I don't think the jury's going to really appreciate it. So I went home that night, and I came back the next day. The judge says, you don't look too good. He goes, do you have the flu or something? He goes, you know, I can give you a continuance. I said, oh, no. I said, I took your advice, Al. I said, I drank 2 bottles of wine last night. I kind of hung over. And it really did it. I mean, it took me down a couple of notches, but, you know, you had to do what was necessary. So he always joked. I said, yeah, the red wine approach to cross-examination. Worked at the time. Yes,
Can I change the subject a little bit?
absolutely.
Why did you leave North Tonawanda and join the Navy? I was in the Navy. I was proud of you. Why did you join the Navy, like, out of North Tonawanda? And then go to college?
Okay, I'll start with why did I join the Navy? I went down to join the Army and they were closed that day, so I joined the Navy. It's a true story. True story. Yeah, next is best, you know. Let me put it to you this way. I didn't think after high school I was college material. And I said, you know, why go to college and experiment with tuition and stuff? I said, go to the Navy, I'll use the GI Bill. So that's what I did. And I was able to work. I worked a couple of jobs in college. I had some benefits left over. I was able to turn some of my VA benefits into law school, and it just panned out real good.
How could you leave North Tonawanda?
I keep asking myself that question every day. Please.
I've been here 90 years.
God bless you. God bless you. No, well, it's, as I say, it's always going to hold a special place in my heart, and that's why I started here with this presentation.
That's why I wondered how you did that. How many colleges did you go to after the Navy?
I attended 2 colleges. I started out at, excuse me,
16?
John Jay College in New York City. Then I transferred to Fordham. Don't want to give too much away for you people who've read the book. You know the story. Are you going to buy the book?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Find out then.
It's in there.
You're getting the hang of this, Chet. You're getting the hang of this.
I'm kidding. No, I didn't plan on going to law school. I really didn't. I was thinking of a graduate degree in public administration. And I was thinking about going to NYU. My wife was finishing up. She's an occupational therapist by trade. And we were both going to school at the same time. And I know because I used to always go to their library and use their papers for research at the NYU library. But to make a long story short, it was really math intensive, and I didn't take a lot of college math. So I said, oh man, I'm going to take the LSAT. Unfortunately, I scored pretty decently and got accepted in law school. So,
Yes.
Any other questions?
Consider flipping and becoming a defense attorney?
You know, I first started out, Howard, doing defense work. I worked for a small firm in East Orange. Ooh, there's no other way to say it. That guy was a dick. I really hated that job. Oh my gosh, he really was. But I did some defense work there. I did what they call pool work. Public defenders' caseload is immense, so you get on their pool list and they assign cases to you. You go into court at a reduced rate. You got to do a lot of it to make any money. But the one good thing about this guy I worked for, he let me do that. And that's how I got my foot wet. And then he had this case he thought was an absolute loser. Phew. I don't want to tell you about that. I'm almost ashamed. That one. But I tried the case and I won it, and the prosecutor in the case was so arrogant and so just wasn't listening to reason that I said, I got to go over to the other side. That's when I decided to become a prosecutor. And the rest of the story again, who read it. But, there's no good or bad side. I mean, like I say, the system works because you got people on both sides, who are doing their job. If they do their job right, whatever the result is. And I got to say, I probably did say it, 9 times out of 10 the jury gets it right. There's cases they, and some are stronger than others. I loathe the people in the office who, would just try the winners. To me, that was like, nah, it's not me.
How did DNA change your prosecuting and investigations?
There's a little tidbit in the book about DNA. But I'll tell you, it changed things considerably. DNA isn't as exacting as you think. I mean, it tells you who the source is, but if you're trying a sexual assault case, it doesn't negate a consent defense, for example. The technology, it was so funny. I was around when the first DNA case was tried in the county, and my supervisor tried the case. And she worked for like 9 months on this brief. And she comes into court, all ready to argue because it's a precedent-setting case. It's, you got to convince the judge that DNA is reliable. She comes in, and no kidding, her brief must have been 2.5 feet high. And she comes threatening, and she says, and this judge was particularly lazy, right? Particularly lazy. And she said, well, Your Honor, I'm sure you read my brief. And his response was, I don't understand x-rays either, but I know they work. She was absolutely devastated. It was unbelievable. Oh, my goodness. Oh, gosh. He was a great guy, this judge. He just, oh, my gosh, you go to sidebar and, like this very hotly contested case. And you'd be surprised that he was actually reading the rule book right there. He bought a new Jag every year, so he'd be reading the Jag. It was like, rest in peace, Judge.
Talking about DNA, you said you made a comment about how people watch too many crime shows and stuff, and they just expect too much of a result too quickly. And do you think that that's really the case, or do you think it's more from the people that are being tried, or maybe the ones that are, the defendant that think they're affected by it, or expect?
For some reason, I was talking with my brother about this. People drive by an accident, don't want to see it, but they look, right? There's that morbid curiosity. Okay. People get a lot from the TV shows. They came to expect that. And, I don't know, maybe a lot has changed in 11 years, but, we didn't have satellite footage of the person robbing the bank or anything like that. What you see on TV is, it's why they can wrap the case up in an hour. It's all make-believe.
But do you think people expect too much from you because of that?
Well, it's your job to convince them as to why that wouldn't help. Fingerprints. I handled thousands of cases during the course of my career. I only had one case where we had usable prints. You might find that in the book, so we're not going to tell you too much about that. And you'll learn a lot about why you can't always get fingerprint evidence if you read the book. So I encourage you to do that.
Did you ever run into jury nullification?
Oh yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Like I just wasted 3 days of my life, quite honestly. It didn't happen often. After the O.J. Simpson case, we experienced a tremendous amount of hung juries. Jurors being hung along racial lines. But then eventually the pendulum swung back, and hey, you do the best you can, but when you get the 12 people in the room, you can't control what they think. You can only tell them how to think when they get in there. And sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. Yes, sir.
We had that bike path rapist here. He was innocent. He was locked up for 20 plus years. And the man was slow.
Yeah.
And they even said, Delano, the detective, said he could not have done it. This man was, but there was so much pressure from society and the media. He got locked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kept happening, the bike path. They kept it occurring. So they used DNA when they finally caught it.
That's a terrible injustice.
That is terrible.
No one should ever spend 20 years behind
And
bars.
how many innocent people are incarcerated because of?
None, I tried.
There are no guilty people in prison, okay?
No, I mean, it's a terrible tragedy when it happens, and that's why. I mean, I don't care. If you had to spend 20 years of your life in prison, they gave you $20 million, I don't think it'd be worth it to me, you know? You know?
The Duke lacrosse scandal. Those parents that have kids going to jail, FDA was putting them, did you follow that? That Duke lacrosse?
Indeed, I did. Yeah, another case that, yeah, I mean, you should, you know? Yes, Val?
So how, working with these people and the tragedies that you've seen and the conflicts and everything, how has that affected the way you look at people in general?
Well, my kids used to tell me, you know, you're so cynical, Dad. I said, they pay me to be cynical. This is my job. I can't just accept things at face value. How do I look at people? You know, I always looked at people as people. You know, there were a handful of people I could say that you didn't want to be in a courtroom with. I mean, they were just evil. You could just tell. I mean, you felt the chill when you were in a room with them. But for the greater part, people made mistakes. I mean, if they weren't hurting anybody, you know. What happened in New Jersey, which was tragedy, in my opinion, is they tried to model the federal system. In the federal system, there's no parole. You do like 85% of your sentence, no matter what it is. And New Jersey moved to that with violent crimes, your homicides, aggravated assault, aggravated sexual assault, armed robberies. So these sentences were mandatory. And anytime you make sentences mandatory, you kind of take away your opportunity to be fair and just. And the judges felt their hands were tied a lot of times. And, you know, everybody's like, yeah, throw these people away for as long as you possibly can. Well, some of them, yeah. Some of them need to be removed from society forever. And some deserve a second chance because they're not bad people. They just kind of did bad things. On the other hand, you know, anybody who took anybody's life, ABC later as far as I was concerned, you know.
Chad, who's more likely to look for a plea deal, defense or prosecutor, or isn't there a...
It's a give and take to me.
Right.
You know, you work with the person, so in New Jersey, there's usually 2 prosecutors in every courtroom assigned to a judge and 2 public defenders. So I might work with that person for a long time, years, and there has to be a certain trust that you have in one another. When you got a strong case, you don't stick it up their butt. And conversely, when your case isn't that strong, they'll be a little more likely to find some wiggle room and, you know, working a guilty plea. You know, it comes with experience, Tim. I mean, I love drag cases. It made the day go faster. You know, I'd rather be in trial than doing anything in the office. And there are prosecutors who, I don't know why they ever came to the office, because getting them to try a case was, and that's a shame, you know? It was like, yeah, you're here to do this. You're here to do a service to the public. They expect it from you, you know? Yes, you had a question in the back.
Well, I was just, as a follow-up, I asked about DNA, and then we were talking, or this gentleman asked about wrongful convictions. And I mean, obviously, DNA must be helpful to minimize or at least diminish some wrongful convictions, correct?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Project Innocence. Who's the guy that was on O.J. Simpson's defense team? Schick? very chic, very chic, very chic. Yeah, I mean, he runs this Project Innocence, and they've gotten convictions reversed through new trials granted on the basis of DNA. It depends. I'm not saying it's not conclusive in all cases. Was my point. But yeah, it's a very powerful tool for both the prosecution and defense when it goes your way. But you know, if there isn't, with the prosecution, it doesn't go your way. That exonerates that person. You have an absolute ethical obligation to dismiss those charges against him. Was DNA used in that case, if you mind my asking? Yeah. And where did they find the DNA?
They got a cup that they went to a restaurant after.
Okay, but I mean,
They took his cup and they took the DNA.
did they extract DNA from the victim,
From the
or?
steering wheel. He had driven the car.
Yeah, I know how they got his,
Yeah.
but what was the DNA evidence at the scene?
Well, a couple, like her sweat was on the steering wheel.
Okay, her sweat.
No,
His sweat?
somebody else had gone killed, and they took the DNA from the steering wheel from the other car. Another girl had gotten killed while the other guy was in prison, so they knew it wasn't him. And they took the DNA from the car, from her car, from the victim's car, from the steering wheel.
He moved her car.
From the victim's car.
He was
all the
driving
other
the car.
Did they prosecute the cops
Yes.
federally?
Yes.
Yeah, in 1983 action?
He died in prison.
Who did?
Recently, wasn't it?
That was named
Sanchez. He was guilty, the other guy was the guy, Sanchez was the guilty guy. The other guy was the
Sanchez,
guy.
that was it, yeah.
Sanchez was the guy, my neighbor worked with him at American Brass. He said he was a strange dude.
Paul, Paul, was the allegation that they planted the evidence?
No, one guy they had convicted was kind of slow, and then they caught this Sanchez later on. And Sanchez was definitely guilty, and he went to jail and saved the taxpayers some money and killed himself in jail.
Oh, I think the guy.
But somebody lied.
Committed suicide.
Uncle lied about the car.
Jail, he slit himself on the wrist.
Uncle lied.
Yeah.
How long after you graduated did you join the Navy, and is your favorite watering hole in North Tonawanda still open?
Perfect.
First things first. No, our favorite watering hole is gone, right guys?
Right.
Yeah. It was like the boys club, Scooch. That's how good it was.
What was it?
Midtown Grill, block over. Scooch, I joined right after, I joined before I left high school. I looked for someone with Dave Schnowski and Union Carbide, which made boot camp look like small potatoes. And so I left in September, yeah.
What, say again, I missed it.
I graduated in June and I went to boot camp in September.
I lived down the street.
You gotta have something in your background, and you skipped out of town too fast.
You have to read the book. It's in the book. That could be another book. Yeah, there you go.
There were a few things that could have prevented this career in law enforcement.
Are you familiar with all those fires on the chart behind you?
Oh gosh, I've been to prison a lot of times, just visiting. I'll tell you one funny story. We had to go to Rahway's, or I'm sorry, not Rahway, Trenton State Prison, which is maximum security prison in New Jersey. And I mean, it's a bad place. It's scary just to go in there. And we're seeing this guy who's a witness in a homicide case. Okay, so you go in there, you gotta wait like an hour before they bring the guy down. So, and you get searched. You want to take a pencil and a pad of paper in with you. My detective had to check his gun. So they bring this guy down. And the guy, pretty stocky guy and stuff, and he's got like 6 corrections officers with him, and they all look like they should play left tackle in the NFL. And they're huge guys. And they bring him in, and you know, I'd seen the witness's rap sheet, so I knew he wasn't a violent offender. So I said, yeah, you know, I'm not worried about this guy, but I'm kind of like curious as to why 7 COs, corrections officers, are bringing him down. So I get the guy in a room, and there's a cage in the corner of the room. He goes, you want me to put him in a cage? I go, no, that's not going to be necessary. So would you take the cuffs off too? And he goes, you want the cuffs off? I said, yeah, I want the cuffs off. So you see how he takes his nightstick, he sticks it on the guy's chin, and he goes, we're going to be right outside the door, so don't get any ideas, you know? So I sit down, I start talking to the guy. It's the wrong guy. We don't know if we got a serial killer out there. The guy was really nice. He goes, "Hey, look, I didn't see this thing, but I'd be willing to testify." No, you don't understand. It doesn't work that way. So now we tell the COs they got the wrong guy, so now we got to go back out. It's another hour while we wait for them to bring the right guy down. So they bring this guy down. Same thing. He's with 6 corrections officers. You know, he's got belly chains on, ankle chains, the whole thing. And he's halfway down the hallway. He goes, "Hey, Chet, I didn't know I'd be talking to you today." It turns out this guy, he was like a petty thief, and he had all his crimes were like bad checks, that sort of stuff. And I'm asking him, I said, "How'd you end up in Rahway?" He says, "Well, this is maximum security facility." So I went in on a parole violation, and it's automatic that you come here, you know, to serve out the last months of your sentence. So, you know, because he was a swindler and a dealer, he said, "What can you do for me?" And I said, "Well, you know, we're up against a good defense attorney in this case. You know, if I give you anything, you're going to be worthless to me as a witness." He goes, "Well, maybe you can help me here." I said, "Well, what do you want?" He says, "Can you keep me in solitary confinement for the rest?" I said, "That won't be a problem." But it was a great afternoon. We laughed about that all the way back. My detective and I said, "Man, we should have got the first guy's name. I'd love to run a rap sheet on him, see what he's in for." But it was those kind of times that, you know, made the job a lot of fun. Anybody else?
Great stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I keep asking
No,
questions.
please.
So just a couple years ago,
Yes.
there, or maybe it was even last year, the Mandy Steingasser criminal trial with Bellstead. And so the trial took place like 23 years or 33 years after the death.
Yeah.
And can you like comment on like evidence and testimony and things like that, like so many years later?
Have you bought the book?
No.
You gotta buy the book.
Okay.
There's a chapter just for you. But first of all, there's no statute of limitations on murder.
Oh, I know, but
You must be a lawyer then.
I know.
Oh, what kind of law do you practice?
Well, not, long story. I worked for a federal judge for 38 years as his secretary.
Yeah.
So I went to law school and just graduated in my late 50s. So
Good for you.
I've just been dabbling. I worked at legal aid for like 2 years.
Yeah, I worked at legal services, my first job out of law school in Newark. That was another adventure. Trying to throw drug dealers out of buildings, and you're the only, there's no other way to say it, white person coming out of the building at midnight. And who's there to greet you? The same drug dealers are trying to throw out of the building. So
I'm kind of familiar with that Steingasser case. They kind of figured he did it all along, and it was a hair, they got DNA off a hair that finally convicted him. And I knew that they offered him a deal for like, he could have pledged something and done like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And he refused that deal, and he got convicted of second-degree murder. He got 25 to life now.
it happens, Dan.
He was offered a plea deal. He was offered a plea.
Yeah.
For only a couple of years.
I defended one time, it was a 2-defendant case. Both shot the victim. The guy who had the 22, his shot didn't kill him. The guy who shot him with the 38 killed him. The guy who shot with the 38, who caused the victim's death, was on the lam. Now the guy with the 22, he's guilty as an accomplice on the murder. It was a felony murder charge because of murder committed during a robbery. All I wanted from the guy was, I said, "You got to plead, okay. I want a statement from you, so, and I don't even want you to testify," because the other guy was a pretty bad guy, so I knew he wasn't too excited about testifying against him. I said, "I want a statement from you that's going to freeze you out as a defense witness, you know, so we could come back when we caught the other guy." Gave him probably the middle end of a manslaughter, aggravated manslaughter plea, like 17 years. He turned it down, he went to trial, he got 47 years. Seriously. serious error in judgment. You know?
Yeah.
Have you ever done any criminal work?
Legal aid,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, I mean misdemeanors.
Misdemeanors. That's all right. They're not nice either. Yeah.
That wasn't for me.
No. Well, that's okay. It's not for everybody, believe me. Yes, sir.
For the record,
Yes,
I
sir.
worked the Manny Steinmetzer case with Detective Paul Schultz,
Hey, good.
and it took 28 years to finally get justice. And
Wow.
we got justice because we impounded his car, we had his car for 28 years.
Way to go, guys.
We did it with DNA, traces of DNA, and that's how we got the conviction.
Hey, these guys deserve a hand. Way to go, fellas. I said what I said because right before I retired, I tried a 30-year-old homicide. The federal marshals had grabbed this guy and, you know, he was reconstructing, but all, you know, the physical evidence is there, as you know. It's just memories have a tendency to fade and, you know. But if you buy the book, you might enjoy that chapter because of what you're experiencing. Thank you. Thank you for what you guys did.
Do you think that a unanimous decision by the jury is a good thing for the justice system?
Yeah, you know, although Billy, every day it's getting harder and harder to get 12 people to commit to anything, you know. What's ever in a trial, right? And there's a lengthy homicide trial, and the judge says to the jury, 10 days, so go in there and ask them if they want to go to lunch, you know. So we're waiting a half an hour, you know, and nothing's happening. Just says the guy, go back and ask them. They want to go to lunch. He comes back and he goes, they can't decide whether or not they want to go to lunch. Oh my goodness. Oh boy. I think we picked a bad jury here, you know. Oh man, shove it. Yes.
What do you think of polygraph?
Polygraph? Oh, we had a guy who never passed anyway. it was always inconclusive. There's a reason they're not admissible. Guys, you want to tell
That's
them?
wrong.
Tell them a little bit about polygraphs. I got two guys here who probably sat through a number of polygraphs, right?
We never used them one.
Yeah. We would use a polygraph to test witnesses, usually. You know, see if the witnesses were telling us.
What reason
The
was
truth.
that then you used it?
Because you didn't want to follow. It's important when you invest homicide cases. These guys can tell you. You know, it's no joke. The first 48 are extremely important, and you don't want a guy who's sending you down the wrong path. You know, so it's what we would use it for usually, just to find out if the witness is telling us
I
the
have
truth.
to disagree with you on the polygraph because the wife and I both ran polygraphs.
Did you really?
North Tonawanda.
Oh man, I could have got you out there too.
They're wrong in the admissibility.
You're not admissible in New Jersey.
You must be selling beer here. That's where we're going. Oh, okay. We talked a lot about that.